Hi guys, it's the Bipolar Hot Mess. I'm doing this video today to talk to you about a little bit about borderline personality disorder. A lot of times people are misdiagnosed and they tend to be diagnosed with either borderline personality disorder and they really have bipolar disorder or vice versa. And sometimes their doctors diagnose them with both of them. So I just wanted to give just a little overview of what borderline personality disorder is, and for those of you who don't know, with borderline personality disorder, the person has problems regulating their emotions and thoughts. They can be impulsive and reckless in their behaviors, and a lot of it has to do with their relationships with others. They tend to be unstable. Their symptoms can be triggered by pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be anything extreme or extraordinary to trigger them. But the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, I'm going to give you the 9 symptoms that are listed in the DSM, and you need to have at least 5 of these in order to meet the criteria for borderline personality disorder. And these usually begin during adolescence and early adulthood. That's when you typically find these. First one is extreme reactions to abandonment, whether it's real or perceived. And by that, an extreme reaction would be a panic attack, extreme depression or extreme rage, because they fear that they're being abandoned. Whether or not they are being abandoned, in their heads, they believe that they feel that they're being abandoned. So they have this really extreme reaction, whether it's something like a panic attack or extreme rage. Number 2 is a pattern of intense and stormy relationships with family, friends, and loved ones, often veering from extreme closeness and love to extreme dislike or anger. So basically, just over the course of the years, there seems to be a pattern with family or friends where you're really, really close with them and, everything's going fine and wonderful and things are great. And then all of a sudden, the person who might have borderline personality disorder suddenly dislikes those same people for some reason or another, or get extremely angry with them for whatever reason. But they go from one end of the spectrum to the other end, starting with really, really close to really, really distant, and that's what they mean by intense and stormy, because it's either all or nothing. Distorted and unstable self-image or sense of self, which can result in sudden changes in feelings, opinions, values, or plans and goals for the future. That is, they basically kind of similar to someone who has like an eating disorder, where they're looking in the mirror and they could be, severely underweight, but when they're looking in the mirror, they're seeing themselves. They see like this enormous person. That's kind of what's going on here. When they're talking about number 3 with the distorted or unstable self-image, or sense of self, you can either inflate yourself to be something so much bigger than you really are, or you bring yourself down and you cut yourself down to something that you're not, things like that. And because of that, then you either, it changes your feelings, opinions, values, or plans and goals, because you're either creating yourself into be something so great and something so big. So you create these huge plans for yourself, and that's kind of like something that you might experience if you experience mania, or if you're feeling very low self-worth and you're having very bad self-image, you may end up having had certain goals, and then you have to cut them down and you make them very, very minimal goals because you feel that that's all that you can achieve. You can't achieve anything better than that. So it affects your outcomes, your goals and plans for the future in that way. Number 4 is impulsive and often dangerous behaviors such as spending sprees, unsafe sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, and binge eating. Those are also symptoms that can be seen if you're experiencing hypomania or mania, which is why some of these, if you listen to all of these, some of these can also reflect things that would be a symptom of bipolar disorder. So that's how I guess how there can be a mistaken diagnosis, because the symptoms are quite similar. Number 5 is recurring suicidal behaviors or threats or self-harm. A lot of people will either threaten suicide, they will attempt suicide, or they will threaten self-harm or actually engage in self-harm. That's just one of the characteristics. Number 6, intense and highly changeable moods, with episodes lasting either a few hours to a few days. That's also, if you have rapid cycling bipolar disorder, then those are very similar characteristics. I am a very rapid cycler, ultra rapid cycling actually, and my moods end up changing very drastically sometimes between hours, sometimes a few days. So you can see there's similarities there too. Number 7 is chronic feelings of emptiness and or boredom. I don't think I need to give any examples of that. If you're constantly feeling bored, though, some may think, if you have ADD, that, oh, well, you just have ADD. People will say that. Not necessarily true just because you're bored, but if you have all these other symptoms and you have constant feelings of, either an emptiness, like there's nothing, or boredom, then that may be, another symptom to show that you do have borderline personality disorder. Number 8 is an inappropriate, intense anger or problems controlling anger. So if you're having problems with your temper and the way you're expressing your feelings of anger or rage, those could be attributed to possibly borderline personality disorder. And last is having stress-related paranoid thoughts or severe dissociative symptoms, such as feeling cut off from oneself, observing oneself from outside the body, or losing touch with reality. Basically, you're feeling like you're disconnected from yourself, and you're like going through the motions, but it's like you're watching yourself go through the motions, and you're off to the side. Like you don't feel like it's you that's doing them. You feel like it's somebody else that's doing them. And so, of all of those symptoms that I listed, you have to have at least 5 in order to qualify for the diagnosis for borderline personality disorder. There are treatments for it, but there are no medications. There are no medications that specifically treat borderline personality disorder. There are medications that can treat certain symptoms of the disorder, but none that that's all encompassing for borderline personality disorder. The most common type of therapy or treatment is psychotherapy, which is talk therapy. You can do it with a doctor one-on-one. You can have group therapy sessions, or if some of these issues are occurring with the family, you can have family family groups, like family sessions where you all get together as a family with a doctor and try to work through them. There's a few types of psychotherapy. There's CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and the purpose of the cognitive behavioral therapy is to identify and change the core beliefs and the behaviors that are causing that person to have the inaccurate and the distorted perceptions of themselves and others, and to help with their interactions with others. One of the benefits of CBT is that it can help reduce a range of mood and anxiety symptoms, and can also help reduce the number of suicidal and self-harming behaviors that you engage in, because it's helping you to change the way you think, and because it's going right for those, it's going right for the thoughts that are making you or causing you to feel less than, like you're the negative self-image that you have, or the negative sense of self, or the paranoid feelings you have about being abandoned and things like that. The thoughts that are not really true. Cognitive behavioral therapy are helping to help you work through those, so that you can learn to believe that those are not true, and that you don't have to worry about those. And by doing that you're not going to try to attempt suicide again, or you're not going to self-harm again, because they believe that the reasons you're doing those are because you have those negative thoughts. The other therapy is DBT, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. I know I've done a few videos on how to go through DBT. If you're not very familiar with it, there's not a lot of doctors out there that use this therapy method, but what it does is it focuses on mindfulness, and it teaches you how to control intense emotions. So by controlling those intense emotions, you can reduce self-destructive behaviors and improve your relationships, because it's not going from extremely good to extremely bad, or the anger where you're experiencing all of a sudden just sudden rage. So DBT kind of helps work with your mindfulness, so that those interpersonal relationships can work better. Schema focused therapy combines CBT with other psychotherapies, and they focus on the way people view themselves and the way they view themselves that affect how they interact and cope with others. So those are just a couple therapy methods. Some more information on borderline personality disorder. Here's some statistics. 80% of the people who have borderline personality disorder have suicidal behaviors, and 4 to 9% commit suicide. One study showed that if those people who engaged in DBT therapy, it reduced suicide attempts in women by half. So that showed that DBT was helpful, at least for women who have borderline personality disorder. The types of self-harming that have been linked to borderline personality disorder are cutting, burning, hitting, headbanging, and hair pulling. Usually when you think of self-harming, you think just of cutting. But there are other ways of, to self-harm. There's a lot of coexisting conditions. Borderline personality disorder, if you have it, you usually have problems regulating your emotions and thoughts, and you have impulsive and reckless behaviors and unstable relationships with other people. And so the other coexisting conditions you may have include depression, anxiety disorders, substance abuse, eating disorders, self-harm, and suicidal behaviors. We kind of talked about all that. And just a little more info. The most persistent symptoms tend to be the ones that are the highly changeable moods, intense anger, and impulsiveness. After you've had full-blown remission of all the symptoms, relapse is pretty rare. 1%, one study has found that 6% have had a relapse. So that's pretty small. But that's after you've had a full-blown remission where all of the symptoms have gone into remission, not just one or two, or the worst symptoms. All of the symptoms is considered full-blown remission. There was one study that showed in women that omega-3 fatty acids may help reduce symptoms of aggression and depression. So those are some things that people with borderline personality disorder battle with. So omega-3 fatty acids added to the diet, they say in women they help, but again, that was just one study. If you want to help someone who has borderline personality disorder, a few ways that you can is first by educating yourself about the illness, and I say that for any mental illness out there. One of the best things you can do to help someone that you know or love or care about that has that illness is to educate yourself about it, so you know the facts and not the stigmas, none of that. Like, educate yourself so you know the facts and you know exactly what you're dealing with, and to offer support. Sometimes people just need an ear, they just need a shoulder, or they just need a hand, and that's all. I mean, it doesn't even need to be anything more than that sometimes. So just by offering your support, that enough, it can be so helpful and can mean so much to someone. Encourage them to seek treatment if they're not already in treatment. Some people are afraid because of the stigmas attached to the fact of having to go to see someone, some type of a therapist. A lot of people get flack from either other family members or friends for going to seek treatment, and I mean, it's getting a lot better now. I know when I first told my family that I was going to seek treatment for my eating disorders, they had visions of the mental hospitals like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that was their version. Like, that was the vision that they had, and that is definitely not the way therapy works nowadays, and that's not how hospitalizations work. So, I mean, a lot of people are afraid that if they go to seek therapy, that's the vision that other people have and are gonna, cast upon them. So by being supportive and encouraging them to seek therapy, and that's letting them know that you're not going to hold that over them, and that's helpful and encouraging. And also, never ignore signs of self-harm or intent to harm themselves. Don't ignore any threats of suicide or attempts at suicide. Those should all be taken very seriously, and you should really get the if someone has tried to commit suicide, they definitely need to seek treatment, and you need to do what you can to help them seek treatment and get them into treatment. If someone threatens suicide, then you definitely need to contact. There's 1-800 numbers. I have a bunch of them, I believe, posted on my website. But you need to get them in contact with a suicide crisis hotline, or you need to get them to the nearest hospital, or you need to call 911 or contact their local police department to let them know if you can't be there with them to keep them safe. So those are just a few introductory facts I have on borderline personality disorder. So I hope you learned a little bit from it. If not, if you have any further questions, feel free to post them at the end of this video, or you post them on my website at www.bipolarhotmess.com, or on the Facebook page, Bipolar Hot Mess. And that's about all I have for you guys. Have a good evening. Bye.